Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles. You know, Wargaming have this history of introducing tanks that are clearly a bit overpowered, letting you get used to them, and then taking them away, messing around with them and putting them back in a tier higher than you originally had. Like the KV-2 for example, which was originally, believe it or not, a tier 5 heavy tank. Yes, I know. Wargaming being Wargaming, of course, it didn't take long for them to realise that they could get you to pay to get the same tank back, like the ISU 152 of course, with the infamous BL-10 troll cannon that was clearly way too powerful, according to Wargaming, to be on a tier 8 tank destroyer. So they took it off the ISU 152, waited a few months and then sold it back to you as a premium ISU 152K with exactly the same gun that they said was too powerful to be on a tier 8 tank destroyer, when all they meant was it was too powerful to have for free on a tier 8 tank destroyer. Does anybody remember at the same time that the KV-2 was a tier 5 heavy tank, even though it was just the KV with various different gun and turret options, the same was also true of the Panzer IV, which could fit the Schmaltern, the Panther turret, and a long-barreled 75mm gun, also at tier 5. Clearly this was way too powerful, so they removed that turret and gun combination from the tier 5 Panzer IV and then sold it back to you as the tier 6 premium Panzer IVS. Exactly the same as the tank that you were previously able to get for free a whole tier lower. Type 64, that thing needs to die. Oh, hang on a second. Oh, no disrespect to the Type 64, but that thing up there, the enemy T-50-2, is in a much more dangerous position. Fantastic. It's coincidentally, of course, the same machine as that being driven by today's protagonist, Bluinator, here in the T-50-2. Another tank that Wargaming messed around with, took away from us, and then at least had the good grace not to try to sell back to us, but gave back to us a tier higher, when it didn't really need to be removed from the game in the first place. Whoa, hang on a second there, Jingles, you can't have this both ways. Even those of us who weren't playing the game long enough ago to remember what this thing was like in its original incarnation as a tier 5 light tank have heard all of the horror stories about how this thing just couldn't be stopped because it was so small and so fast. And yeah, that's absolutely true. If you were playing a heavy tank, or even some of the faster medium tanks, and you saw a couple of T-50-2s in a platoon on the enemy team, you would start to sweat bullets because you just knew that you were going to get swarmed at some point and there'd be nothing you'd be able to do about it, because they would circle you so quickly with such a tight, physically impossible turning circle, pecking away at you with those 57mm guns, and there'd be nothing you or anybody else could do about it. He got caught in the open by one or more of these things. Oh wow, look at that Cromwell right in front of him, hasn't seen him. Yeah, notice the flat Panzer over there running for his life. He knows he's been spotted, he's not hanging around to get a dose of what was just dished out to that enemy T-50-2. Oh, thankfully there's no friendly firing wheel attacks anymore, because Bluinator just took a shot up the arse from the friendly Tiger P, trying to kill that Cromwell in front of him, who has now been dealt with. And this, by the way, is not what the T-50-2 was known for, because if you got caught in the open by one or more of these things zipping around you at 70 kilometers per hour, pulling the most insanely tight turning circles, there was nothing you could do about it. You couldn't outrun them, you couldn't outmaneuver them, and you couldn't outshoot them because you couldn't turn the gun turret fast enough to get the gun pointing at them, and you were more likely to die as an S-51 in the corner of the map spotted. No, I think going for the Panther was the right call. S-51 is going to live to get killed later on in the battle. But yes, when you were under those sort of conditions with one or more of these things circling you, you were probably at more risk from the rest of your team trying to shoot them and hitting you rather than them. I mean, they were overpowered, but they didn't need to be removed from the game. Yes, they were doing things that were physically impossible for you to do in a tank at the kind of speeds and angles that they were moving. But physics was about to be introduced to the game. And when you introduce physics to the game, things that are physically impossible become physically impossible. Physics would have fixed this tank. This tank would have been more of a danger to its driver than to the enemy team if you kept trying to pull the same manoeuvres that were possible in this machine, and were what made it overpowered prior to the introduction of physics. But of course, Wargaming displayed their usual lack of imagination, and removed one of the most beloved tanks in the game from the game. Fortunately, they gave it back to us. I have to confess I was extremely surprised to see this thing appear in the garage as a gift tank rather than Wargaming try to sell it back to us, because they could have made all of the money in the world. This tank would have sold on its reputation alone, much like if they suddenly put the Type 59 back on sale. I mean, that's not the tank that it used to be, because the game has moved on, and the T50-2 is not the tank that it used to be, not just because they put it back in a tier higher, although this thing being tier 6 is actually a buff to its matchmaking, because at the time tier 5 light tanks were scouts in tier 10 battles, so... But like I said, the game's moved on. Not just with the introduction of physics, which means this thing couldn't do the active scouting role that it was famous for in the same way, because it would just flip and roll over as soon as you tried to turn a corner at 72 kilometers per hour. That was never a problem for this tank when it was in the game the first time around, because there was no physics. But also, yes, it's a small, fast-moving target, it's difficult to hit, but it's easier to hit now because there's so much more gold ammo flying around, in particular APCR ammunition, which has much higher shell velocity, making it easier, not easy, but easier to hit little tanks like this, as you can see happen to the other T50-2s that Bluinator was platooned up with. They were active scouting in the middle of the field. They are both dead. He's passive scouting, a role that this tank was never really very good at, because of its limited view range, but which, in the hands of a pro, as you can see by the amount of spot and damage done, 3,000 and counting, it turns out this tank is actually quite good at. Well, if you're on a map like Prokhorovka. Oh look, the artillery's still in the same spot, hasn't moved the entire game. Well, of course not, his artillery, why should? Oh, Bluinator got spotted. Direct hit might have messed him up. Actually, no, probably not. Not with the high explosive nerfs. What's left? Just that flat panzer. Where is he? He didn't take a shot. Oh, he feels like he's going to be close though. Oh, there he is. Wow. And he's only just been spotted. And the flat panzer is dead. And that just leaves the T-34-85, and he's already spotted, which means he's dead too. A sneaky 3,700 spotting damage there for Bluinator, in a tank that was designed as an active scout, but is today being used as a passive scout, because in the right hands, any tank is the right tool for the job. Sadly, no post-battle results screen, although you can probably guess just how well Bluinator did there with that much spotting damage, because Wargaming have introduced a bug into the World of Tanks replay files which makes it impossible to display post-battle results from a replay file on the World of Tanks replay website, which Wargaming are claiming has absolutely nothing to do with them. Yes, the same World of Tanks replay website that you have to log into your official Wargaming account in order to access fully. Yeah, nothing to do with Wargaming. That site that's linked from the official World of Tanks web portal and that requires an official World of Tanks login to access fully. Nothing to do with Wargaming. They're just washing their hands of the whole thing. Because of course they are. So yeah, in future, try to include a screenshot, otherwise this. Good job, Wargaming. Anyway, also, and non-sarcastically this time, good job Bluinator, getting a result like that in a tank that was never really designed to do this sort of thing. Although if it is going to happen, it's probably going to happen here on Prokhorovka, where there are so many opportunities to do such good passive scouting, if you know what you're doing. So good job Bluinator, everybody else. Hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.